Hi, I wanted to talk a little bit about the Oklahoma teacher walkout and just provide you a little information. Teachers, you've probably already done all this research, so take that for what it's worth. I want to talk about 5 things. I want to talk about how we got here. I want to talk about where we are, what has happened so far, what still needs to happen, and how you can help. How did we get here? Oklahoma's faced 10 years of cuts or flat funding to common education. Put that in perspective. Fiscal year 17 was the first time to reach the same levels of funding as fiscal year 09. It's a pretty big gap. I want to talk about per pupil spending because it's a very good indicator. It doesn't matter what your GDP is or your student enrollment, and so it's a great data point. This chart shows the regional average is about $9,500. Oklahoma falls short of that by about almost $1,500. To put it in perspective, it would take us $1 billion in additional revenue just to bring us to the regional average. To bring us to our closest neighbor in terms of spending, Texas, which spends almost $1,000 more than we do, it would take us almost $700 million in additional revenue to bring us to the same level per pupil spending that they use. In addition, I did some of my own research. We often hear that 51 cents of every dollar in Oklahoma goes towards education, but that's not actually true. 51 cents of every appropriated dollar goes to the total education budget, which is a very large budget. In terms of common education, which would be K-12, it's actually a little bit closer to 15.5% in terms of total revenue spending. We spend about $20 to $30 billion every year. So Oklahoma, sorry for my terrible math, Missouri and Arkansas, but Oklahoma spends about 15.5% versus some of our regional averages, which you can see are much higher than ours. Colorado, Kansas, Texas are significantly higher than ours. I don't know how percentage of the total spending on Common Ed is lower in Arkansas because they pay their teachers more. So there's got to be something I'm missing in the numbers there. But anyhow, where we are now, the threat of the teacher walkout caused the legislature to finally move and get into action and pass House Bill 1010xx, or historic bill passage that happened on March 26th. Unfortunately, some back channel deals immediately stripped or held hostage from the deal with $72 million in funds that we'll talk about here in just a minute. In addition to those issues being $72 million short of what was promised immediately, there was only a $1,250 raise for support staff, which are the lowest paid individuals in the school system that help make it run, and teachers felt like that wasn't enough of a raise for them. And in addition to that, teachers had asked for $200 million for general revenue spending. When you divide that over, you've probably seen these numbers a lot. When you divide that over 700,000, our student enrollment, you get $286 per student. That equals lots of textbooks and resources, things for the classroom that are going to make those environments more conducive for learning. What was approved was $50 million, which divided over 700,000 is $71 per student, which really doesn't even go to buy a textbook. And keep in mind, because of the shenanigans that had already happened, that money is now not funded. In addition to that, all week long on the House floor, there's been shenanigans between the Republicans and the Democrats. Democrats have been saying that there's holes in this funding from what was promised to what has been the revenue streams identified. Republicans have said all week long, nope, it's there, while refusing to provide any tangible information that shows where that money's going to come from, or providing any information as far as a plan to replace the funding that they had already stripped out of the bill that they just patted themselves on the back for passing. So what has happened so far? We're on day 5 of the walkout. The Senate today approved a $22 million ball and dice bill that helped bring that gap in funding, the $72 million I mentioned, helped close that down a little bit. They agreed with the House and repealed $50 million. We still have this huge gap in the funding. Now, admittedly, it was the $5 hotel motel tax. There's lots to be said about that. Again, Republican leadership has not come up with a plan to replace that funding, so far as I can tell. They just keep saying, it's there, trust us. What has happened is a $20 million bill on Amazon and internet sales tax did go through. It's been approved. It'll go to the governor, and so that does help bring that gap down to $30 million. But keep in mind, teachers asked for $200 million, and the legislature has approved $500 million, and there's still a $30 million gap in that. If you're doing the math, honestly, that's $158 million, by the way, of what was asked and what's been approved so far. What still needs to happen? Teachers are very adamant that House Bill 1086, which is about capital gains, should be heard. So is an independent auditor who looked into the capital gains bill that's been in existence, I think, since 2005. They found that on average, it's costing the state $100 million every year to keep this capital gains bill or loophole. In addition to that, they found that from fiscal years 10 to 14, cost the state $450 million in lost revenue. That alone would have paid for almost all, if not all, of House Bill 1010. Just putting that out there. So what you can do to help. If you're frustrated, especially because your schedule's been rearranged and you've been struggling to make sure that your family's taken care of, please contact your legislature. Please let your representative, your senator know, either by calling them, writing them an email, commenting with them on Facebook, but they need to know that you are feeling the impact of this, so it encourages them to move. In addition to that, if you could call your school boards and your administration and let them know you are appreciative of their support. A lot of the amazing leadership, especially here in Oklahoma City, from places like Yukon, Putnam City, Deer Creek, Edmond, I'm sure Oklahoma City PS, I'm sure there's others that I just don't know about super well, but the leadership that has been exemplified is the reason that so many professionals have stayed in the state to make less money. If your leaders are not being supportive, please contact them and let them know that you wish that they would have their teachers' backs. Finally, the state testing window is coming to a close in a few weeks, and unless our state superintendent, Joy Hoffmeister, can move the window, what you can do is you can call your local school district and let them know that you're happy to volunteer and proctor exams. I know I'll be doing that as just one way that I can give back to the teachers who have sacrificed so much to make sure our kids have a better learning environment and a brighter future. So thanks for listening. If you have any contradicting information, please post it. Please direct me to it. And this is the information I found. If you want my links, my sources, I'll be sure to post those as well. Thank you, teachers.